obviously, as you mentioned, you're not the MP, so what can you actually do more than say I can do to help people in the recovery?
So I think, what I can do differently is get those connections within the National Party. And I mean, I think the point to make is
other
that...
MPs and
yeah, absolutely. And look, they're really well connected across the board with the Cyclone recovery. We've had a lot of MPs visit. We've had Chris Pink, we've got Andrew Bailey on Saturday, we've had Christopher Luxon 3 times. We've had visits from all manner of MPs really here to make sure that they're getting the message and making sure they take that back to Wellington. Matt Ducey was another one. He's our spokesperson for mental health because the issues are broad. And so Chris Pink particularly, he's going to be the spokesperson, or he is the spokesperson for the Cyclone recovery. And as a result, we've set up a bit of a team that's able to help constituents so we can actually get something going for them. Because, unfortunately, this government is really set on and talking spin of the statistics, how much money they've put in, but actually who's being held. And we've got an event this weekend to connect with people that are really struggling to get that support because they maybe don't meet the criteria or they've slipped through the cracks. So I can make those connections, I can advocate for people, and to have the ability to be out there all the time, on the ground talking to people and making sure that those issues are heard. And we push it up the food chain, we poke the bear, whatever we've got to do to make sure that they get the help that they need.
So who are these people that are not meeting the criteria and slipping through the cracks?
Yeah, so look, I mean, a couple of examples. There's some growers out in Esk. There's some farm supply companies in Puketapu. There's a number of businesses in the urban area. And this is the hard thing. There's some businesses that have done really well out of that funding and hopefully can prop up their staff and teams and keep their businesses going. It isn't their fault that they've been successful in getting that funding and support. But the real challenge is when you've got people that have been turned down because they maybe have got support from MPI for clearing their driveways so that they could get into buildings, who then can't get the business support funding because they've tapped into $4,000 from MPI, and now they say goodbye to $40,000 from MB. And look, I think that's really unfair. And so look,
you've been out and about there speaking to people, and you've mentioned some of the issues and that with getting access to funding and that. What are some of the other issues you're in?
So I think one of the big ones that a lot of people are talking about is red zoning. That's a real confusion for people. And look, as simple as the red stickering of a house compared to the red zoning, a lot of people don't know the difference. They don't understand that that's something different. And that's no one's fault other than just a lack of communication. What does it mean if you've got a white sticker, a yellow sticker, or a red sticker? And when are they going to hear about red zoning?
And red zoning is when a whole community is moved out.
And not necessarily. Red zoning is just when an area is no longer able to be built on. And look, I think that we learned a lot about that during the Christchurch earthquake. But unfortunately, this region didn't necessarily get pre-briefed on that. But I know that this government stood up and said that they don't want to have any longer than what Christchurch has had, and they set themselves a timeline of 4 weeks. And that's well and truly passed. Yeah. So, look, people are getting really restless. And in some cases, insurance, they're sitting, waiting, and they don't know what to do. And so in the meantime, people aren't getting the support they need to be able to, if they can start rebuilding. And if they can't, to be able to help them to move on.
Yeah, I put questions to Grant Robertson on that earlier this week, asking him, have they been completed, all the data being collected? And it is about 2 weeks later, and he says they've got most of it, but they're still waiting for some. So do you see this sort of dragging out and becoming 4 months like Christchurch?
Look, I really hope not. And that's just not fair on people. I mean, so many I'm talking to, they just want to know. There are a lot of people that want to rebuild where they are because that land is home. And you can't argue with that. I mean, beautiful areas. Puketapu, Eskdale, among many others, are some stunning pieces of land that people have made lives and generations of lives, on, and businesses as well. And I think it's really hard to be dangled like a carrot with that answer. I think also it's really hard on the local government who have done their piece. They've given their data, and unfortunately they're copping a bit of flack on that too, which is not really fair.
Yeah. Now, while many of the concerns are genuine, there have been a lot of conspiracy theories floating around. How have you managed to separate truth from sort of urban legend and that sort
Yeah, look, that's really tough. I've seen some of that firsthand, and I think that it's so unhelpful for people that are really in distress. And I think there are people out there that genuinely, believe some of that, and then there are people that think, hey, now's the time to make a mountain out of a molehill or create untruths and spread that. And it really it unsettles everybody. And look, I think the faster we can put it all to bed, the better, and focus on the real issues. It's just another distraction, and it sets people in the wrong direction, because we need our communities united. We need people listening and trusting and believing in the authorities that are working really hard to get things back on track. Yeah. And so, all of these, rumours or completely unfactual pieces of information that are getting around, usually on social media, it just sets us all back, because as soon as someone from an agency comes out and says, hey, we're here to help, and then there's some kind of rumour that's flying around that disrupts the ability to take that on board, we just go backwards.
So on crime, how much of that has been rumours and urban legends?
Look, I honestly think that more than anything is mostly fact. I can't speak to every issue that's come up, because of course, that's not been reported to me. I hear what I hear, but in terms of the looting and the activity that's been going on in some of the areas that are vacated because of the cyclone and the flooding, absolutely true. Yeah. Because who's going to report that? Because those people, in the weeks following the cyclone, had no power. They had no internet. They had no way to report it. Whether it was 111 or 105. One of the people I was talking to out in Eastdale, he made the joke that he'd have to drive into town to be able to call 111. And so, at that point, it's way too late. So, look, I do think that unrest and that, opportunistic behaviour that's really troublesome is absolutely true. And I know firsthand, there is someone I know well that's had a torch shone in her daughter's bedroom multiple times from people out in that area looking for an opportunity for, a chance to take things from people's homes where they may not be there. And to their surprise, there's someone there. That's just not good enough. So look, this community doesn't need to be gaslit. Yeah. These people need to feel safe, and for someone in Pakawhai who's not at their home, who wants to be in their home, for their cars to be broken into, almost weekly, it's just adding insult to injury, and to then be told that no, actually that's not true and everything's all rosy is just unfair.
No, because your party has indicated there needs to be a tougher approach on crime, and generally, is there a problem with crime in Napier if you take out the cyclone-affected areas?
Yeah, 100%. Look, I think the hardest part of this whole cyclone is the fact that there is still a whole lot of stuff going on, but they're not getting the attention and support because we're really having to, allocate our resources elsewhere.
What's a whole lot of stuff going on?
Look at ram raids. Before the cyclone hit, I've been working hard to help businesses that have been impacted by ram raids. And, yes, there's some support out there for them from the police, the grant to get smoke machines and, absolutely, smoke machines, bollards, all that. So they get the approval, they get allocated the funding, and then they can't get the bollards because the council won't let them put bollards in front of their building for, town beautification rules or, various planning and consenting issues. So, these are issues that are genuinely still facing us. There are still ram raids every 10 hours in New Zealand, and our gang numbers are up 65%. And the national average is 55%. So we're above average, and for all the wrong reasons in Hawke's Bay. And, it is just an absolute tragedy that we have let it go this way. And I think, unfortunately, the cyclone was just the cherry on top for a lot of people with an already major issue. And look, I think if anyone was at that Eastdale meeting, the first one, or even the second one, or watched it online, people have come from other parts of the region to come to those meetings to say, hey, this is not a new issue. It's just that your area is now seeing the issues that we have always had. In places like Miriwa and places like Onekawa, those community members came all the way out to Crab Farm to say, hey, we've been experiencing this and it is a problem, and it has always been a problem for us, and it is just getting worse.
Is this about gangs?
Yeah, look, gangs, break-ins, car theft, ram raiding, you name it. And it is a real problem that has not been addressed because we've got a soft on crime government.
So how do you address the gang issue?
Look, I think the gang issues, we've got a really good policy on that, and it's really easily addressed by empowering the police to really do something about it. Because at the moment they're doing their job with their hands tied behind their backs. So if we can make sure that patches aren't welcome in public, it gives the police something to stand by and to actually go in and break these groups up, set them apart, send them home. Because they're doing public intimidation to gain all sorts of things, and it's just not fair. And they're the same thing with being able to actually attack the firearms, because we know that what we've done with the firearms to make sure that we're taking that off everybody. We have just taken it off the people that are good and willing to give up their firearms, and that's just really unfair. So. Look, I think ultimately we need to be hard on gangs. We need to not be having conversations with them and really negotiating with them. We need to be hard on them. And look, at the people that are doing ram raids, I know one business that, they suffered $50,000 worth of damage to their front door, a couple of days out of business, stock taken, and the people that did the ram raid got $400 fines. And they are 12, 13, 14, 15-year-olds. So look, our policy on youth military academies is also another thing that's going to go really well to make sure that we are, making sure that they've not got a path into further crime, that they have got a path out of it, and harder consequences that make sure that they're rehabilitated earlier in life, and that we're not just pushing the problem further down the road.